Hello and welcome to this episode of Save Your Sanity live stream. So glad that you could be with us. This is a great opportunity to ask your questions or share your experience in the chat, so please do that. I'm Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. I am the host of Save Your Sanity podcast, and I'm here today with my guest, Dr. Debi Silber. We are going to talk about betrayal. It's her specialty. It's something that it's hard to talk about sometimes. It's hard to believe sometimes. There's so much going on, but she has done an amazing study. And as a result of that, she has all kinds of things to talk about. So thanks for joining me, Debi.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to our conversation.
Well, it's an important one because so often people don't want to believe that they've been betrayed. So the ability to recognize betrayal, to actually recognize it and say, oh, that's what that is, can be kind of tricky.
Absolutely. It's so painful because we're never betrayed by people we don't know. It's by people we're the closest to. And it's when those people that we felt so safe with, so secure with, we trusted, and trust is so precious. And when that trust is violated, it imprints on the body and mind. And I believe it's one of the most painful of the human experiences.
Well, I would agree with you. You know, you and I have both been doing our work for a very long time with individuals and couples and things, and there's nothing quite like the look in someone's face who has just been betrayed and found out. That they're just completely perplexed. How could that happen? How could that possibly happen? I know that person so well. They would never do that. And there's just this cognitive dissonance that occurs, isn't there?
It's like someone just took a mask off and showed you who they've been. And it's an absolute shock because I know I go through life thinking if it's going to hurt somebody, just don't do it. And I assume everybody lives by that same code. And it's always shocked to find that people don't. And, listen, people are just responding and reacting from their current level of consciousness. And it's like how you wouldn't expect a dog to not act like a dog. Well, if someone's at a certain level, that's sort of the best they could do for the level they've been at. But it's so painful. And I think one of the biggest, when you throw the heart in, and I study, it's not just, with a partner, it's family, it's friends, it's a coworker. I mean, the closer we were, the more we depended on that person, the more heart was involved, the bigger the betrayal. But they all create tremendous pain.
Well, they do. And, as you're saying that, there are different levels of closeness.
Mhm.
But, just to kind of zoom in on the times right now, I was on Facebook and I saw one of my friends, a person that I actually know and have interacted with over the years, not closely. It's a business associate, but somebody that I felt like I really knew. And there they were holding their camera up, taking video of we're protesting, open the businesses, it's our right, that, all of this stuff going on with no mask, no nothing, no social
Mhm.
distancing. And so I just put a little comment and I put, really, so and so? And he wrote back and he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, how are you? I mean, you talk about compassion, you talk about spiritual things all the time. I'm having trouble putting this together with you not wearing a mask right now. I can understand you may have a different point of view about the economics of our country, but I'm having a little difficulty with the no mask thing.
Mhm.
And it was just one of those moments, Debi, where that's kind of far removed. It's not your closest friend or your parent or your partner. But it was like, I thought I knew that person.
Yeah, it's you realize that where two people could be on such completely different pages, and you thought you had something in common, and then someone can say something or do something that just shows how different you are. And then, I mean, in these times, we're seeing the best and the worst in people too. So, emotions are flying, and people are afraid. They're really afraid, and they show that fear in so many different ways. And I'm finding this can be the best thing for partners, for families, for relationships, or the worst. And
Yeah,
and I'm sure you're seeing this too. We're seeing a lot of it. It's really bringing out the best and the worst.
absolutely. And, we just got this comment. This is one thing I struggle with, being I've known him for 20 years,
Yeah.
right? Like 20 years you thought you knew someone. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you get your head above the clouds and and you say, well, this event happened, and then you start cascading through the past and the red flags and all the little things, because I'm always telling people, when you're madly in love or you're trying to justify behaviors of someone, you got your rose-colored glasses on and you're totally missing the red flags, right? And you can be in a relationship for a long time. You rationalize, you justify, you make
Mhm.
excuses for someone. Then you jump on the bandwagon. Oh, maybe I need to be more compassionate. Maybe I need to more understanding. Maybe I need to be more patient. I just need to make this person feel loved. And when they feel really loved, they'll stop behaving badly. And the fact is, you can't do that. It
And
won't.
yeah, you're absolutely right. Here's where I see the gift in betrayal, because it puts a stop to just the relationship as it was, and it gives you an opportunity for the entire relationship to crash and burn. And that's actually a good thing, because what I see is that's the point where someone can either, and I've seen it happen every which way, I'm sure you have too, where someone, let's say the betrayed, is so shocked and learns this lesson of, you know what, I've let boundaries get crossed and I never put my needs first, and I never realized how lovable, worthy, and deserving I am. And they're changing. And at the same time, the person who betrayed them can say, what the heck am I doing? What was I thinking? And they can have the most profound wake up call. When that's the scenario, then you have something to work with if you choose to.
Big
You know,
if.
if, right. And here's the thing, rebuilding is always a choice. Like whether you rebuild yourself. I had two horrific betrayals. One was my family. And in that
Mm.
case, I had to walk away. It wasn't a healing, healing myself, but working out something with them just was not an option. And I was becoming so sick, and it just wasn't healthy at all. And then, you know how the universe works. You don't quite get it. You get another opportunity. That was my husband. Yeah. And that was the shocker of all shockers, absolutely crashed and burned. Now, here's where one of the first things I did was enroll in a PhD program. And it was because I was like, you know what, that's it. It's my turn. And because I've been raising 4 kids and 6 dogs in the business, and it led to the study, which led to me studying betrayal and all of that. But what it also led to was a completely new identity. And what it led to in him was the shock of his life and a completely new identity as well. And then, not long ago, we actually married each other again, two completely different people. New rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids is our bridal party.
And a new
I never would
baby.
have done it if he
Yeah.
were the old version of him and if I were the old version of me. So there are so many factors. It's contingent on so many things.
Well, I think before we talk about that study that you mentioned, I think it's important for people to realize that life is a dynamic process. So many times couples will come to see me, which they do by video, so it kind of sounds strange, come to see me, but we'll be working together, and one of them will say, well, here she is, just not the person I married. And I'll go, yay. And they say, no, that's a bad thing. And well, no, are you the person they married? Did you grow? Did you change? Did you learn something? Did you get a promotion? Did you do something? Oh, and the recognition that growth is the dynamics of a healthy relationship, that it doesn't stay static. So then when you have something that goes sideways, like betrayal,
Mhm.
Like, okay, that's unexpected. That fell apart.
Mhm.
Feel the feelings, go through the thoughts, do the work, arise from the ashes, and say, okay, growth. This is growth. But we can't build a condo and live in the pain of the betrayal forever. That's not going to work. So before we talk about what will work, tell us about your study.
Yeah, and there's an analogy I want to bring up. You mentioned condo, and I have one as well. So, you know, this painful process, I was so desperate to understand how the mind works and why people do these things and how I can heal. So it led me to this PhD program in transpersonal psychology, the psychology of transformation and human potential. I was obsessed with transformation because I was doing it and I didn't understand what was really happening. So while I was there, I did a study. And of course, I chose to study betrayal. What holds us back? What helps us heal? And what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive? And the study led to three groundbreaking discoveries. So the first was that healing from betrayal is very different than healing from other life crises, death of a loved one, disease, natural disaster. You know, with any crisis, we grieve, we're sad, we mourn the loss. But because betrayal feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So originally, I was studying something called post-traumatic growth, which is sort of the upside of trauma, how that trauma leads to new insight, awareness, perspective that you didn't have. And that's wonderful. But betrayal also involves healing of the self, everything that was demolished, rejection, abandonment, confidence, worthiness, trust, belonging. That all has to be rebuilt. So it needed its own name, which is now called post betrayal transformation. So that was one of the discoveries. The second was that whether we stay stuck for years, decades, or a lifetime, and many of us do, if we're going to heal, we will move through 5 stages. And what's even more exciting about that is now we know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every stage. And we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next, which gives people so much comfort because now we can identify, oh, this is the stage you're in. This is what you have to do to the next one to get to the next one. This is what you have to do to get to the next one. So it offers a tremendous amount of relief. People realize they're not crazy, they're not alone, they're exactly at this certain stage, and this is what they have to do. And then the third discovery, this was so exciting too, that there's this unique collection, physical, mental, and emotional collection of symptoms so common to betrayal that now it's known as post-betrayal syndrome. And we have a quiz on the site to see to what extent people are struggling. And it's interesting because we always hear time heals all wounds, not betrayal. And we see
Mm.
and we can tell how it holds us back in our relationships, in our health, in our work. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are fascinating things. How many people were in your study?
I did a qualitative. So instead of having just a broad base, I wanted to deep dive the lived experience. So we had 14. They were called the Fab 14. And these were intense interviews of their experience before their betrayal, physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, the betrayal itself, what it led to, the again, physical, mental, emotional symptoms, and what they tried, what worked, what didn't work, what seemed to move the needle more for them, what held them back, how they moved towards spirituality or religion,
It's
so
like,
many things.
yes, so many things. I think we
Mm,
lost the sound there for a minute.
oh,
We might have missed that. But there are so many components of this. And so
mhm,
when you dive deeply into 14 people's experience and you really dig around in there and you find the commonalities and you find all of those things, it's extremely valuable. And as you were saying, part of what arose from that was the quiz that you have for people.
mhm.
So there it is on the screen. Go to pbtinstitute.com/quiz and you can take it to find out if you have post-betrayal syndrome. Now, with my work, if you're with a hijackal, you're going to have been betrayed. There is no question that the person that you thought you were in relationship with, the person that you believed was the love of your life and your soulmate forever and you couldn't believe your luck, that person over time shows you that's not the real person. That was the love bomber who came by to say, come here, it'll all be wonderful. And so there's betrayal in that basically before they do any of the things that they actually engage in and like to do over time, which are many, many, and there are lots on my podcast about that. But if you have been in a relationship with a person who is toxic, the likelihood of betrayal is so high
Hmm.
that it's really important to listen to what Dr. Debi Silber is saying here because she's done the study and she's had a good look. So, what do you do if we've been wandering around in denial for a while? You know, we're making up excuses. We're,
Yeah.
oh no, they weren't. They were out with their friends. Oh no, well, you have to have trust in a relationship, and if he or she tells me that's where they were, that's where they were. You know, all of those pieces. What do we do about denial?
It was interesting because there were three groups in the study that did not heal. And one of the groups refused to accept and acknowledge their betrayal, just refused.
Ah,
And it's so interesting. And I use this analogy. This is the one I was talking about before. Here's the difference between resilience and transformation. Resilience is bringing back, restoring, and you need that for your everyday. So let's just take a house. Let's say your house needs a new boiler. You get a boiler. That's resilience. Or let's say it needs a new roof and you get a new roof. That's resilience. You're bringing it back. You're restoring. Here's trauma and transformation. A tornado comes by and levels your house. A new boiler's not going to fix it. A new roof's not going to fix it either. Neither one. They're not going to fix it. Now, here's the thing. You have every right to stand there at the lot where your house once stood and say, "Oh my gosh, this is terrible. This is the worst thing that's ever happened." You'd be right. And you can call all your friends over and say, "Look at this. This
yeah.
is awful. Isn't it awful?" And here's the thing. We have a right. We can mourn the loss of our house for the remainder of our days. But however, if we choose to rebuild, why rebuild the same house? There's nothing there. And so what I see so often is the brightest people mourning that house for decades and decades and decades.
I've seen that too. And I just want to thank this wonderful person who's listening to us. Remember, that's a wonderful way to say thank you, is giving us a super sticker. So thank you so much for that. That's great. Yeah, I mean, I love this metaphor. Like, just imagine that your house has been leveled and you now decide to get yourself a stool and sit in the middle of the
Mhm.
debris. And everybody who comes by, you say, can you believe what happened to me? Look at this. I mean, what's this person supposed to do? Why should I get up and go to work? Why should I do anything? Look what someone did to me. Now, that's what some people do. That this is the pivotal event in their life. They make an entire narrative about it. Their life is ruined. This person ruined them. And that's only one not very conscious option that you have. And
Yeah.
it's important to know that because you have to come to terms with betrayal.
Absolutely. And that's the challenge. I mean, but that's where the opportunity is too. Because yes, there's one person who's mourning the loss and they're just staring at that empty lot and someone says, "Oh, you know what? Since the house is gone, it's time to rebuild. Why don't I build the most magnificent structure? Why not give it everything the old house didn't have? Why not make it so much bigger, better, more beautiful?" And that's what I see in my community with people who are healing from betrayal. They're taking that opportunity and doing something really good with it. Because if something really harmful, really bad, really painful is going to happen, you owe it to yourself to do something really good with it. Otherwise, it's just a really bad game of hot potato.
Well, yes, and you gave one option, like you look at it and say, why not build something better, something that suits you
Mhm.
completely, is the thing that you want most in life. Maybe the other option is to say, oh, let me take a moment. Let me clean up the debris. Let me say, oh, there's a little vestige of something I might like more of. Oh, there's a whole lot of things I never want. Let me learn from this experience as
Mhm.
I shift and sort and sift through everything. And then I might find that what I want and what I have kept when I look at it is so vastly different than what I was doing to run around and try and please somebody else who knew what they wanted.
Absolutely. And what you just described, when we talk about the 5 stages, that's so classic to a stage 3 moving into a stage 4. Because that's what happens. Once we make that decision, and willingness is such a big part of this, once we're willing to give up that story and the identity that goes along with it and all of the small self benefits that go with it. We get to be right, we get someone to blame, we get a target for our anger, we get to, we get pity, we get sympathy from other people, we get a lot of stuff. And when we're willing to get right, when we're willing to give that up, we start becoming much more discerning. We start making very different rules. We start creating new boundaries. And one of what stage 4 is about is finding and adjusting to a new normal. And here's where your old normal doesn't exist. You've accepted it. You know that you can't go back. And I always use the metaphor of, if you were to move into a new house, condo, office, apartment, whatever, you don't quite have your things in it. You don't feel settled in, but it's going to be okay. And what's also so interesting about this stage is that if you were to move, just like you said, you wouldn't necessarily bring everything with you. The things that don't represent the version of you that you're becoming don't come with you. And I see in this stage, relationships change, friendships change. Because if your friends weren't there for you, if they didn't show up for you the way you needed them to, you've outgrown them because you see things so much more clearly here.
I think that's a really good point. Whether there's been a major betrayal or you've just had a new thought or you've learned something about yourself, is that there's nothing wrong with recognizing that maybe it's time to move on. You don't have to cut people out of your life, but you may spend less and less time with them in pursuit of people who are maybe a little more at the stage that you now are, or you're thinking differently about it. And sometimes, we have old friends who will accept us and roll with us no matter what. And then we have old friends who say, you know, why do you want it to be different? Like I remember when I lived on an island, which I left 20 years ago after I'd raised my kids, and I would always be away studying every summer, every holiday, everything, because I had a job and I raised my 3 kids alone. And so I would always be vitally interested in bringing things back. And then I would put on seminars and people would count on me to come and learn. And I was on the bleeding edge of personal growth. And yet they would come to me when I was planning a trip or doing something and they would say, "Aren't you ever satisfied?" And I would
They
say,
don't
"But
get it.
but if I don't go there, I won't have anything to bring you, and you're always happy when I bring you something." So we can have friends who are afraid of our growth, and yet they want to benefit from our growth, and they're in an incredible place. And sometimes we can accept that. And sometimes when we change and we say, "I won't settle for that life again," and they're in that life, they're not the best companions.
Absolutely. Do you know how many people told me I was full blown crazy when I was going back for my PhD at 50?
Oh, I believe you.
Are
Yeah.
you nuts? What are you doing? You don't have to do that. It's not a have to. It wasn't a have to thing. And here I am creating this membership community that's going to launch in a few weeks. It's not a have to. I'm being so pulled. It's so exciting for me. And it's so interesting too. At graduation, I'll never forget. So I graduated, maybe it was 2 years ago. And I get an email from a gentleman, and he says, "Oh, we're going to be at graduation together." "Oh, that's so great. I'd love to meet you." And he says, "Forgive me. I'm not really good with names. My memory's starting to go. I'm 79." And here I was graduating with someone who was 79 years old.
Yes.
Right? How
Yay.
great is that? Just,
That's
that he was ready for his next thing.
Well, I think it's perfect. I have never known grass to come to a certain height and just stay there forever, healthy and happy. Now, I know there are varieties of grass who do that. I'm not talking about those. But, grass grows and maybe it gets cut down or maybe it gets to waft in the breeze or have a life of its own. And somehow we feel like, okay, I got to a certain place and I have a job and I have a family and I've done all the de rigueur things to say I'm a grown up. And then you say, oh, I think I'll go and get a PhD. I know when I did it, I was raising 3 kids working full time and people were saying, you're nuts.
Yeah.
But no, and people ask me all the time, Debbie, do you have plans for retirement? And I say, yes, I am retired. And they say, no, you work all the time. I said, yeah. But you see, the thing is, my definition of retirement is that that's the time of life when you get to do exactly what you want to do all day. And doing what I'm doing floats my boat and flips my skirt. So I must be retired.
I want to retire just like that. That's it.
But that's the kind of thing we're talking about. If people say, why do you want to grow? Why do you want to improve? Why are you engaging with new ideas? Why do you read provocative books? Why do you go to those things where you learn new ideas and maybe it's completely out of your field? And if they're asking you that all the time, then maybe those people are not the most supportive people on your journey right now. They may be people who can't imagine doing it for themselves, so therefore they feel a little threatened when you're doing it. And
Absolutely. You
maybe they are in a relationship where there is some betrayal going on and they don't want to face up to it because they have that earlier issue we were talking about.
Mhm. And it's so interesting to see. I mean, I saw this even within my own marriage. Here I was always learning and growing and reading and my husband was saying to me, are you not content? Just exactly what you're saying. And it's so interesting because once he woke up, he's devouring every book that's been on my shelf for years. So it's so interesting for me to watch, where someone can truly be at one level and then a completely different level. And others just stay, and that's okay. We've outgrown them. And that saying, people are in our lives for a season, a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And we
Right.
get to see who's who. And the beauty is, and I remember one of my mentors said they're called growth friends. And
Mm.
surround yourself with growth friends. And I love that. I have such inspiring conversations with people who are just so lit up about what they're doing. And it could be so far from anything I would ever want to do myself. But
Right.
there's something about that enthusiasm and that zest for life, doing whatever it is they're doing. I believe that's what we're here for. I mean, could you imagine if and I know every single one of us has a unique strength, gift, talent, calling. If each of us figured out what that was and we use that to serve and help others, I mean, that's what we're here for.
Well, yes, and what that's speaking to is our uniqueness,
Mhm.
that certain things appeal to us. We go in certain directions. I will never be a sports trainer, but I appreciate that. I want to hear about that. I don't have any plans to go around the world in a one-person sailboat, but that's exciting. I want to hear about that. Um, we don't have to be what other people are. We need to be the best version of ourselves, and that's limitless.
Oh,
So when our
absolutely.
green and growing edges want to spread out, I think it's wonderful. And I agree with you. Surround yourself with people who say, yeah, I'm into this. What are you doing? Or I just learned this, or I took this seminar, or whatever. And you're like, tell me about it. Because if you go and you tell me about it, then I can decide if that has any interest to me, or I can just be excited about your excitement.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, one of the things that's so exciting for me to see every single day within the community, we'll see people, because once you heal, what always happens is the next level and the next layer are just revealed. So, and I'm sure you see this too. Someone may start working with you to heal from their betrayal or their issue, whatever it was. But then once that's been cleared up, there's such confidence. And then they say, well, what am I ready for now? And
Well, I
maybe,
just I just had one just like that, and
mhm.
she said it was really slow going, and she was trying to heal from this terrible betrayal. And she kept saying to me, "Well, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening." And I said, just give it time. Just keep doing what we're talking about, changing your thoughts, looking at these things. And then after, oh, I don't know, 8 or 9 sessions, she said to me, "I went on vacation. I couldn't believe how differently I thought about all this kind of thing, right?" And I said, "Oh, do you think something changed?" Yes, I had no idea it was changing.
Yeah,
So as she realized that, then she said to me, "Do you know, I find that I'm not really happy in the work that I'm doing. Do you think you could help me look at what would make me happy?"
that's it. And it always, as one layer and level of healing happens, new things are revealed. I mean, I've seen it where someone comes in for betrayal, they leave with a new body. They come in for betrayal, they leave with a whole new business idea. It's so exciting. It's so exciting. And that's that transformation, because now they've healed the pain. They've healed themselves physically too, because it takes on a whole physical,
Yeah.
it takes us in a, down a physical issue spiral too. And then with that confidence, it's, well, what else can I do in the area of business or health or spirituality, or just because the confidence is there, write that book, whatever it is. And
Well,
then it just
yeah.
takes on a life of its own.
Yes, it's an awakening that happens like, "Oh, there is a breath of fresh air and I can move toward it. There's light and I can move toward it."
Hmm.
This is filled with possibilities and it's a wonderful thing to do. And I think we could continue to have a wonderful conversation for a very long time, but I hope that everyone listening has found something of value here. Know that you can go to pbtinstitute.com and if you put /quiz after it, you can take the post-betrayal syndrome quiz. You can get in touch with Dr. Debi Silber if you have recently been betrayed. If you've been betrayed by a toxic person, you always know where to find me. But you can find me at forrelationshiphelp.com. That's what I'm here for. And of course, my specialty is working with those people that are in relationship with those people I call hijackals. They're relentlessly difficult, toxic people in life. Thank you so much for being with me, Debi.
Thank you so much. I could chat with you all day.
I know it's fun. We'll have to do more of it. So if you found value here and you have questions, put them in the comments, whether you're listening live or you're listening to the replay. I'll check back. I'll know, and we'll respond to them. If there are questions for Debi, I'll make sure that she joins us too and gets to know what's on your mind. And if you're enjoying Save Your Sanity podcast, you're enjoying these opportunities for us to talk, you can go and support it at patreon.com/saveyoursanity. $1 a month, $5 a month, whatever floats your boat and flips your skirt and has you say, yes, I want to support that. So until we talk again, be thinking about this. Have you recovered from a betrayal? Have you acknowledged that you were betrayed? And just like Debi said at the top of the program, maybe it was your parents. It certainly was mine as the first betrayers in my life, and it may have been yours too. Could have set up a pattern. So talk to Debi, talk to me, and in the meantime, take really good care of yourself because you're precious and you matter. Talk soon.